Welcome to a Recipe Reborn featuring your favorite foods from Final Fantasy XIV. Hello, my name is Lemon Drop and I recreate dishes as close as I can to the in-game recipe, description, and thumbnail. If you're into 14 and food, please subscribe and click the bell for a new episode every Tuesday. Today I am making coffee biscuits. Seems simple enough, right? Well, except for the thumbnail looks like it's too pale to have brewed coffee in it. It also looks like a chocolate chip cookie, which I want to steer away from. You know how sometimes you go for one and it turns out to be oatmeal raisin? Nobody likes that. So how do I make a coffee cookie that isn't coffee colored? The answer is coffee butter. If you've ever made special brownies, you'll know that if you simmer a plant in butter, some of the flavors and chemical properties of that plant will transfer to the butter. I may or may not be speaking from personal experience, just note that I live in Canada and some things are legal here that aren't legal elsewhere. After straining the beans and letting the butter firm up in the fridge, this is a very straight-ahead sugar cookie recipe. In the bowl of a stand mixer, I'm sifting my sugar into the butter and then creaming them together until they are light and fluffy. As usual, you'll find times, temperatures, and measurements linked in the description. Next, I'm mixing in the wet ingredients. Now I'm sifting in the flour, cornstarch, and adding the salt. The dough is starting to look like large crumbs, and when pressed together, it should resemble the texture of Play-Doh. Here I'm rolling out the dough between layers of parchment paper, which is so much easier than keeping a floured work surface. I got these neat job crystal cookie cutters from lootcave.com, hashtag this is not an ad. I purchased these with my very own loonies and toonies, and this is the first time I'm using them. They are pretty large, and the instructions say to roll the dough to a thickness of 1/4 of an inch, also known as 6.35 millimeters. I'm putting these in the fridge while I roll out the rest of the dough. Now, I play Black Mage, so naturally I'm building my light party around my job. I've got White Mage, Bard, and Paladin. I would have chosen Dancer, but I bought these cookie cutters before it was announced. These bake pretty quickly, about 12 minutes. So I tasted the cookies out of the oven and thought, the flavor is pretty subtle, which is exactly what the description says. But I like the flavor of coffee, so how do I take this to the next level? How about coffee-flavored caramel? This is my first time ever making caramel, and I thought it was going to be difficult, but I was surprised to find that it wasn't. Bring some sugar and water to a boil and cook it until it turns golden brown. Add some cream, flavorings, give it a whisk, and let it cool down. A thermometer isn't necessary as long as you do not step away from the pot. I'd like to mention again that you need to let this cool. It was cooking at 225 Fahrenheit or 107 Celsius. I let mine cool for 1 hour before working with it. Now I'm in the decorating stage. I did the first 4 with a chopstick, but the second set were much easier with a skewer. A toothpick would work too. Since the design is pressed into the surface of the cookies, all I have to do is draw within the lines. Looks pretty good. I would say the only downside here is that this is pretty time consuming. It took me about 5 minutes to do each one. I considered using a piping bag, but I'm not sure I'd be any faster with that. I think the ideal tool here would be a squeeze bottle, like one you would use for ice cream sundae toppings or ketchup. But I don't have one, so I'm stuck with chopsticks and skewers. In retrospect, choosing jobs based on how easy they would be to color in with caramel might have been a better solution. But I'm a greedy Black Mage and that will never change, so here I am. If you preferred, you could use the caramel as a glaze and just pour it over the entire surface of the cookies. Just keep in mind this caramel has a really intense coffee flavor, which is why I think it works better on these cookies in small amounts. But that's just my personal taste. I put these in the refrigerator for about 15 minutes to set the caramel, but it will stay pretty soft regardless. Overall, I'm happy with how these turned out. I managed to hit the goal of having coffee flavor and a light colored biscuit. I didn't think of adding coffee caramel until after I tasted them, so I'm feeling pretty proud of myself that I was able to come up with a quick solution that fits so well with the existing plan. You may or may not know that I started culinary school this past weekend. I've only had 1 class so far, but I'm already having a great time. What this means is that I've been posting way more food on social media, so if you want to see what I'm making and stay up to date with my culinary school journey, you can follow me at Recipe Reborn, and all my links including the link to this coffee biscuit recipe are in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next week for another recipe and another episode.